Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. And remember, you can join me each week right here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. for All Things Marcellus, the radio show for you, the landowner. Good morning, and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Remember, you can join me every Saturday and Sunday from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on KC 101. At the Clark Law Firm, my focus is, as always, landowner representation. I have never represented an oil and gas company, pipeline company, or any energy company, nor will I. I represent landowners and only landowner and oil and gas right owners here in Pennsylvania. So if you're looking for representation, you can always contact the office at 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702, regardless of wherever you are located. We do the show now. We're broadcasting in northeastern Pennsylvania, north central Pennsylvania, and now also southwestern Pennsylvania. I have clients in all of these areas. I have represented clients in all of these areas, so don't worry about distance. We have clients, again, I say this often because it's important, all over Pennsylvania, and have represented people who reside all over the country, and in several cases, people who actually reside outside of the country but have land or oil and gas rights or interests in Pennsylvania. So don't be afraid. Check out pagasleaseattorney.com. Don't be concerned about any distance issues. I'm telling you, with today's technology, it's worked out outstandingly. I have several people right now that I'm representing in Washington County, Greene County, Allegheny, Westmoreland, in that region. So don't be concerned. Learn more. If you're looking for representation, give us a call. 570-307-0702. And it's almost kind of like my tagline. If you don't call me, call someone, but you can't just go signing these documents when they're presented by the company. And you know, I've been talking the last few weeks. I've been saying to people, I've been saying on this show, don't be a signer, someone who just simply signs the documents that are presented by the company. Don't get the reputation of being a signer, someone who gets documents and goes ahead and signs them. You now have a reputation. You're now a target by the company when they need things in the future. They say, hey, this gentleman, this lady, this family, they are signers. They sign documents. Let's go get them to sign. Also, since they have a history and a reputation of signing, we don't have to give them great agreements because they have a history of signing whatever we present to them. So let's give them the lowest lowball offer because they just sign. They are signers. Interestingly, since I've started saying that, and it's funny, this wasn't kind of my intention. I'm trying to make sure that people do not become signers. And if you are a signer, if that's your reputation, we need to change that. There are agreements. I represent people. I represent people in order to typically negotiate, review, consult, and the goal is to enter into an agreement. So this isn't about, I say this not about saying, oh, nobody should enter into any agreements. Not at all. You should enter into agreements, but the agreements you enter into should be right and correct for you for the best possible compensation and the best possible agreement. If it's a bad agreement and you can say no, then you should not enter into the agreement. So I'm not saying don't sign documents, don't enter into agreements. What I'm saying is don't be a signer who just signs documents presented by the company. Don't do it. There are thousands and thousands of landowners out there who wish they didn't sign the documents presented by the company. There are thousands and thousands of landowners who could have obtained higher compensation for a pipeline or any other agreement, better royalty or royalty compensation, royalty calculation language, bonus money. Many, literally thousands of people out there that certainly could have obtained better terms, more money, but they just signed. We need to change this. We need to stop Pennsylvania landowners from just signing. Not saying you don't enter into agreements. Look, that's what I do. But what I'm saying is you can't just sign what is getting presented to you, what you're being presented with. You can't do it. We need to stop that. You need to become informed, educated, and if it's appropriate, yeah, you can sign an agreement. Well, but first, we're going to make sure that you understand your leverage, that you negotiate the agreement, that you get more money if more money is available, that you get better terms, property protections, preserve rights into the future, protect yourself from liability. We're going to make sure that you do all of those things to the best possible degree, not just signing the document presented by the company. And an interesting thing for me is since I've been talking about don't be a signer, do not get a reputation of simply signing documents. Well, since I started talking about that, boy, I must have had at least 5 calls. I've had meetings since then, people coming into the office or telephone conference calls with people saying, you know, I'm listening to your show and I hear you talking about signers, don't be a signer. You know what? I think I'm one of those signers. Listen, good news. It's not too late. It's never too late to make better decisions. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that the next agreement that you sign, you know what you're signing. You know if you had the ability to refuse the agreement. You know if you had the ability to negotiate the agreement, which you almost always do. Remember that. Almost always have the ability to negotiate compensation or protections, property protection terms, indemnification language, tax protection to protect you from potential future taxes, which can be extremely significant over time. We need to protect you. So don't worry if you are listening, you say, oh boy, I think I'm a signer. We can stop it. Stop it today. And again, sorry on the commercial, but call somebody, whether me or somebody else, get some good information and let's learn about your rights and let's protect you. And you can decide how you want to, if you want to sign that document, you can, but almost always there's things that can be done to make that better. But also too, there's often more compensation available than what the company lets on. And sometimes that compensation, and more often than you think, maybe into the tens, very often in the tens of thousands or even hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to make sure you don't leave anything on the table and that you're not taking advantage of. And if you were taking advantage of in the past, we're going to stop that and it's not going to occur in the future. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. So, okay, no one is going to be a signer anymore. We're changing that. No one is going to just sign documentation presented by the company, by their landman who works for that company, not you, the landowner. So we're not going to be signers. We're going to be smart. We're going to learn. We're going to become informed, and we're going to get the best possible agreement for the most money and the most property protections, liability protections, tax protections, opportunities for future compensation. We're going to do all of that, and we're going to sign good, landowner-friendly, fair agreements. So with that in the books, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to get into today's show in a little more detail. All right, so one of the things I've been talking about a lot lately is the impact of gas prices on these agreements and contracts with the company. I know it's a dead horse. My friends in my private life, my friends tease me. They say I have a tendency to beat dead horses. Well, this horse, I'm going to tell you, is not dead yet. There's still some life in this horse, and we're going to start beating it. And please don't get an image of a real horse here. We're talking figuratively here. But seriously, this is a major issue. And again, we got to get this information out there. We need to be thinking about this. Landowners should be talking about it. It's not something that's being discussed. And it's created, low gas prices, believe it or not, have created this tremendous opportunity for companies to take advantage of landowners even more. Even more. Companies are taking advantage of landowners and using the low gas price as a tool, as a weapon in their discussions, as part of their arguments. And I'm going to show you that in some cases, hey, gas prices, absolutely. I mean, they're always a factor. But how does the company twist these prices to influence what you're going to do and to persuade you, convince you, sell you on the document, on the agreement that they're selling, that they want you to sign? I'm going to explain that and hopefully so much more after this first break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Remember, I am here with you every single Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. But if you missed today's show, go check out pagasleaseattorney.com. We'll have today's show up and available, and there are hours upon hours of other shows at pagasleaseattorney.com and pipelineattorney.com. Okay, so we're going to jump back into it here. Now, let me just say, I talk about my scroll, my list of all these different topics I want to talk about. And my problem at this point is which topic to talk about, because I have so many. And then also within a topic, how do I fit it all into an hour? So with that said, I'm going to quit rambling here. We're going to jump into it. All right, I've talked a lot about about gas prices and how they're impacting landowners, not with royalties. We talked about that before, but not with royalties. We're going to talk about this with agreements and the type of agreements that we see. And I'm going to circle back and this affects everything. I want to make sure I explain that this affects everything. So just because I mentioned some things doesn't mean it doesn't also impact other agreements that I haven't mentioned. So with that said, 3 major types of agreements, 3 big ways that low gas prices have an impact on current offers presented to landowners. Number 1, new gas lease offers. The price of gas does have an impact, but remember, the point that I'm talking about here, the whole goal of this show and these next segments is to explain how gas companies use these low gas prices to induce, persuade, sell, whatever word we want to use. Induce, we'll say here, landowners into signing bad agreements. We're going to teach you how, and we're not going to fall into this trap. So, ways that natural gas can impact types of agreements. We say new gas lease offers. Hey, wink, wink, Tioga County, Potter County, you're out there, Washington County. Think about this. New gas lease offers, stay tuned. Okay, lease modifications, extensions, and amendments, where the gas company wants to extend or modify the lease. Low gas prices have a big impact. However, we're talking about how companies use these prices to induce landowners into signing bad agreements. So that's another area. Lease modifications, amendments, and extensions. And the final area I'm going to touch on is buying and selling oil and gas rights. Low gas prices have an impact, but remember, we are talking today about how gas companies use low prices to induce landowners to sign bad agreements. And we don't want to fall for these tricks. So I'm going to walk you through something here. Low gas prices do indeed have an impact. So stay with me, stick with me through this. It's going to all make sense, and you're going to learn quite a bit here, I hope. So, okay, I picked an article. I read a couple articles about the low gas price impact on companies with respect to the production or operations or their budgets. Now, here we go. One article that I'm holding in my hand here is entitled, "This is what caused Southwestern Energy Company's stock to plunge 32% in February." This is 2016. So I'm going to quote a couple things here. One of the things its credit rating agency cited, and this was when they were downgraded, was Southwestern's acquisition of Chesapeake's Southwestern, which is Pennsylvania, Marcellus and Utica shale assets late in 2014. It was a deal that was funded with a lot of debt, which has really come back to bite the company now that the commodity prices have crashed. Now, this is a March 9, 2016 article. This article goes on to state that The other major weight on Southwestern Energy last month, and this would have been February 2016, was its guidance for 2016. As a result of its elevated debt levels and weak commodity prices, meaning low gas prices, the company is cutting its CapEx by a whopping 80% over last year's level. In fact, the company, now this is Southwestern, isn't planning to spend a dime on drilling new wells this year after drilling 380 wells in the year 2015. Let me repeat that. In fact, the company is not planning on spending a dime to drill new wells in 2016. Now, I also said something there where the article references that Southwestern is cutting its CapEx, C-A-P-E-X, spending by a whopping 80%. Well, CapEx that's the funds that a company uses to acquire or upgrade physical assets such as property, industrial buildings, or equipment. Is often used to undertake new projects or investments. So what does that mean? Southwestern, according to this article, based upon information that Southwestern has put out, this states that Southwestern is cutting, essentially, we'll paraphrase and say they're cutting their budget by 80%, and they're not drilling new wells in 2016. Not drilling new wells and massive budget cuts based on large part of the commodity price. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us there? Well, stay tuned a second because I want to read you another thing here. Well, Chesapeake. Let's talk about Chesapeake. Here's an article involving Chesapeake. Chesapeake starts with saying Chesapeake Energy is no longer drilling for oil and gas in the Utica and Marcellus shale plays in eastern Ohio and northern Pennsylvania, the company reported today. Now, I don't have the exact date, but this is in February 2016. In releasing its earnings for the fourth quarter of 2015, Chesapeake said that it averaged just two rigs operating in the Utica during the fourth quarter and just one rig on average in the Marcellus. Quote, the company has now released all operated rigs in both shale plays, Chesapeake says. No indication was given when drilling would resume, if ever, according to this article. The Oklahoma company said it lost $14.86 billion in 2015, with $14.53 billion of that loss attributed to writing down the value of its oil and natural gas properties. The company told investors to expect a 5% decline this year in production and a 50% cut in capital expenditures. Finally, it goes on to state that Chesapeake is divesting $700 million in assets and plans to sell as much as $1 billion in assets this year. Nearly 70% of the capital spending the company plans to do this year, Chesapeake plans to do this year, will be at existing well sites rather than new properties, executives said. Now, what does that mean? And let me summarize again. We say Southwestern, according to this article, information provided indicates that they're cutting their CapEx, or their, essentially we'll just kind of call it their budget to acquire, their acquisition budget, which includes other things as well. So I don't want to limit that. But they're cutting the CapEx spending by 80% over the levels that they had in 2015. So that means massive budget cuts. We hear too then, the last line that I read you from the Chesapeake article, that nearly 70% of the capital spending that Chesapeake intends on doing in 2016 will be at existing sites rather than new properties. Here's my point. Gas price having a tremendous negative impact on natural gas producing companies. Obviously, stands to reason. Also, because of this massive reduction in gas price and debt and problems that these companies are having, they're slashing their budgets and they're not drilling and they're not spending money like they used to. So, what does that mean as a landowner? Well, first, let me tell you, you're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here with you every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. right here on this station. So to circle back, what do these budget cuts, what does this lack of drilling, the companies are telling you, we're not going to drill. We are not going to drill this year. Then they tell you, we're not spending money. We're drastically reducing the amount of money we have to spend. And we're not going to drill. Think about that. No drill. The companies are not going to drill, and they're tightening their belts, and they're hardly going to spend any money. Does that make sense then for you as a landowner? Does this seem to be an opportune time, a good time for you to enter into a gas lease agreement, an agreement to sell your oil and gas rights, to enter into a lease amendment or modification? Why is this a good time for you as a landowner? Well, think about it. Again, think about this. The company essentially has little to no money to spend because the gas prices are so low. And as far as the idea, are you going to miss the boat on production because you didn't enter into this agreement at this time? Well, the companies are telling you by the information that they put out to their investors. And we got to look at everything. You can't talk to your neighbor. You got to, and you can do it, but you got to look at every single thing. And some of the information out there is the money is slashed. There's hardly any money to be spent, and they're not drilling. So the idea of, hey, this is a great time for you to enter into a lease. You don't want to miss the boat. What boat are you missing? What boat are you missing? Well, is it the boat that there's drilling wells all around you? No. Read the articles. Do the research. There are some companies, very few wells that are drilling. So why? Now, I know, hey, you may be in a hurry. You want to do an agreement, but a lot of people got in a hurry and did really bad agreements and see where that left them years later. Think about it. Why enter into an agreement when the company has no money to spend and they're not producing? Now, here it comes. This is not specific advice for any single person. I'm not telling you don't sign anything, don't sign anything. What I'm saying is you need to be asking yourself, why would I do this agreement at this time when the company doesn't have money to spend, they're restricted in their budget, and they're not drilling? What happens if a year, 2 or 3 years from now, the natural gas price goes up, which most people in industry believes that it will? Don't know, but that's a general belief. So if the gas prices go up and you fast forward 2 years, now the company, instead of slashing their budget by 80%, 50%, whatever that number is, and not drilling, well, now they expand their budget, so there's more money to be paid to buy leases, which can mean higher bonus, higher royalty percent for the landowner. Also, competition may increase because now the price of gas is increased. So all of those things weigh in the landowner's benefit. And also now, as gas prices go up and as the industry recovers, then you're going to start to see more drilling and more activity. What is your hurry to sign an agreement today, unless it's a really good agreement and you want to do it? But why hurry to sign under a condition where gas prices are extremely low, the company's budget is extremely constrained and restricted, and the company isn't drilling? So one of the things these companies and the landmen love to say, oh, you're going to be a millionaire, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? So here's the thing, and I'm going to really develop this throughout the rest of the show, but think about this. Why would you sign a 10-year lease for 12.5% royalty? You know who you are, Tioga County. Why would you sign a 10-year lease with 12.5% royalty today with a company when 12.5% royalty is the lowest allowed by state law? That's the minimum royalty that can possibly be given to you. 12.5% royalty, a 10-year lease, meaning you give the company at least 10 years to drill, and you're only getting a minimum royalty whenever you know that these companies have slashed budgets and aren't drilling. Why? And this isn't specific advice for anyone. This is a consideration to be thinking about. Why would you not wait and see what happens over the next few years? Gas prices recover. We don't know what's going to happen, but this is what you need to be thinking about. Gas prices recover, companies' budgets expand. In a perfect world, maybe you get even more competition, but let's ignore that. Let's just focus on prices recover, then you see budgets expand, and there's a really good chance that you could get less than a 10-year lease, because right now companies are not drilling, so you could wait 3 or 4 years. And again, this is just hypothetical, but you could wait 3 or 4 years, maybe then enter into a 5-year contract for higher bonus, and instead of the guaranteed minimum royalty with full deductions for post-production costs, which can be, as many people know, unbelievably substantial. Well, if you wait a few years, the market recovers, you might be able to enter into an agreement instead of 12.5% with no deductions, 12.5% with full deductions. Maybe you can do a 15% with no deductions. Maybe you can do an 18% with no deductions. I cannot and do not attempt to predict the future, but what we are saying is, what do we need to be thinking about? Is this the time to enter into the current agreement when we know that the company doesn't have money or very little money to spend, and they're not drilling, and they're asking you to sign the lowest possible royalty rate, and many times 10-year or certainly 5-year leases with a 5-year extension? Think about this. Once again, this is not specific legal advice for anyone, but these are things that everybody should be thinking about if you're considering a new agreement. I'm going to talk more about this. I'm going to talk about how this also impacts lease modifications and extensions and selling your oil and gas rights. I'm going to be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I want to remind everyone again, I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. But if you can't make the show on Sunday, you can go check out pagasleaseattorney.com or pipelineattorney.com. We have the prior show. We'll have today's show up and available tomorrow, Monday morning. But remember, there's a lot of other shows up there, hours and hours of shows available. pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Okay, jumping back into the show. What I'm talking about here is the idea that we cannot look at anything in a vacuum. We need to be looking at the big, broad picture. I'm also reminding everybody repeatedly, this is not specific advice for your specific situation, but this is to get you thinking. Get you thinking, what should you be thinking about? It's often a lot more complicated or detailed than what maybe your initial impression is. And certainly a lot more that you should be thinking about than what the landman who works for the company, not for you, the landowner, is telling you. There is much more information that you need to be aware of because company landmen and companies are using low gas prices as a tool, as a weapon, as a technique to induce landowners into signing bad agreements. And we need to get you thinking and not fall for this trick and this tactic. What are we talking about again? To summarize, companies, I read some articles from February 2016 where Chesapeake and Southwestern, but they're not the only ones. Companies across the board here are slashing budgets that are used to acquire new leases, to amend or modify leases, even pipeline agreements. They're cutting back their budgets because the price of gas is so low, they're not making as much money and they don't have the money to spend. So they're cutting budgets. Southwestern, in the one article, cutting the budget, it says in the article, a whopping 80% their CapEx spending, which are the funds used to acquire and upgrade assets, property, buildings, and often used for new projects. So up to 80%, a whopping 80%. Then we go to Chesapeake. Chesapeake is saying that nearly 70% of their executive spending that they're going to do in 2016 are at existing well sites rather than new properties. Again, that's telling us they're slashing their budgets, and we know that they're going to stop, or they have stopped, drilling. In fact, the Southwestern article states that the company isn't planning to spend a dime on drilling new wells this year after drilling 380 wells in 2015. I'm going to repeat that again. Please let this sink in. Southwestern, according to this article, March 9, 2016, it's entitled, "This is what caused Southwestern Energy Company's stock to plunge 32% in February," this is February 2016, states that the company, being Southwestern, isn't planning to spend a dime on drilling new wells this year, 2016, after drilling 380 in 2015. So what do we know? They're not drilling new wells. Chesapeake, what do we know here? Here's the article. Chesapeake's statement quotes, "The company has now released all operated rigs. Chesapeake, not drilling." So what is that? And they're not alone. Other companies, the same position. Very little drilling activity going on. Budgets down, slashed, reduced, major cuts, no drilling. Think about this. Is this the time as a landowner to enter into a gas lease when the company doesn't have money and they're not drilling? Landman says, "Oh, hey, landowner, we can only offer you this little bit of amount today. Gas prices are so low." Well, gas prices will go up. I believe that wholeheartedly. Can't predict the future. I assure you, I'm not sitting here with a crystal ball. If I had a crystal ball, I don't know if I'd sit here. But I'm not sitting here with a crystal ball. I don't know, but I'm pretty darned confident the gas prices will go up. Well, then when they go up, companies are going to have more money. They're going to drill more. So the question becomes, think about this. And again, not specific advice to do something, except think about this. Here you are. You're sitting out there as a landowner. You have a lease extension of a very bad lease offer. You may have a new lease offer. You may have another type of an agreement. Maybe it's a pipeline agreement. Maybe it's some other agreement that you can negotiate. Well, ask yourself, is this the best time for me to enter into an agreement with a company who, when you look at the information that's available publicly, doesn't have the money and budget now that they normally do, that it's been slashed and cut, and they're not drilling? So when they come to me as a landowner, Potter County, Tioga County, and we can go on and on to some other areas, but that's a hot area for this type of issue, and they offer you a 10-year lease, and they offer you the guaranteed minimum royalty of 12.5%. It doesn't get worse than 12.5%. They offer you a lease that says guaranteed 12.5%, the lowest allowed by law in Pennsylvania, and they're going to take deductions, or they tell you we're not going to take deductions, but the lease actually allows them to take deductions, or another company may take deductions under this lease. Why? Why is today, you need to ask yourself, why do I do this deal today for the worst possible royalty percentage? Or, hey, maybe you think, oh, well, all right, well, they went up to 13.5%. Maybe they go to 14%. Still, is that what you want? Is that the best you can do? Is this the time to sign a new lease agreement? I want to stress again, maybe in your situation it is, but you need to be looking at a lot of different things. It may be the right time. If you are seriously considering an agreement, I don't care where you are in the state, if you're seriously considering any agreement, you need to get good information from your side and explore, is this the right time? Am I thinking about everything that I should be thinking about? And in almost all cases, most people are not. Now, when I have reviews, consultations, when I talk to people about these issues, we talk about to make sure that you're thinking about everything, that we're talking about the good and the bad. Remember, I represent people who I'm advising my client on this opportunity. And we're talking about all of the pros, the positives, why this may be right for you at this time. Then we're talking about what are the negatives, why this may not be right for you at this time. I have represented several people, many people over the last year that have entered into oil and gas leases, that they believed and they thought once they became fully informed that this was the time for them to do the agreement. Many other people I've consulted with and we've talked to, and we're talking like an hour or two of time and talking. They send me the documents. We have a phone call, whatever that case may be. And we talk about, okay, here's the positives. Here's the negatives. Have you thought about this? Here's what I've been seeing. Yes, you're offered 12.5%, but within the last 6 months, I saw the same company in your township or in a neighboring township, maybe offering 15%, maybe more. We want to give you the most complete picture. And boy, I tell you, you really should have that picture if you're ever going to sign one of these documents. Why sign at 12.5% a 10-year lease under this current market conditions where, yeah, maybe the company doesn't have a lot of money now because of the gas price, but when the gas prices go up, you would expect that their budgets will increase. And the negative side, so you're sitting there, well, I don't sign, I'm not going to get involved, oh my gosh, I don't want to have royalties being paid and I'm not a part of this. Well, they're not drilling. You just heard those articles, do research. Companies are not drilling. Now, if it's a well that is being drilled in the rare case and you're going to be a part of that unit, hey, we talk about all of those things and it may be the right time and you need to do this. Absolutely. But in other cases, you're sitting out there and you're afraid because maybe there was an offer, it went away. The companies are really, really smart. So now they know and they say, hey, well, these landowners in this region, they had offers and those who didn't sign the offer went away. So they're burned. They're ripe for the picking. They're ready to sign anything. So let's go out and tell them, hey, gas prices are so low. This is the best we can do. Oh, it's a miracle we're even leasing. Like, this is amazing. We're supposed to cut back. The fact that we're doing anything is just amazing. I can't believe the company is doing this. Well, it's my apologies. I'm sorry. You know what happens? Like, I hear this stuff, and we do deals. I represent people who enter into agreements all the time. Some agreements are absolutely right. Some you need to jump on and you need to take. Usually we can negotiate them some either way, but some we need to act quickly and we do so. Others, we need to take steps back and figure it out. I'm going to tell you this. I don't care what these guys say. I've seen very few, very, very few cases, and especially like lease offers or any offer like a contract. Now, we see them sometimes with regard to cleaning up mistakes made, operations on the surface, but when they're coming to you with a new lease, an extension, a modification, a pipeline agreement, whatever, and they start to act like, well, the company's doing this just to be a good guy, man, red flags should be flying up everywhere. When a company says, well, these gas prices are so low, the fact that we're doing this is unbelievable. I don't know why they're doing it. They just want to be fair to landowners. My heavens, please, let's look past that. Do you really think that's the case? We gotta be on top of these things. We really need to be on top of these things. We need to make sure that you're not signing bad agreements today without being fully informed, because with a full information, with understanding everything, not looking at this solely in a vacuum for this particular situation at this moment, we can look and we can deduce that there may be better opportunities in the future. That is a personal decision. You don't need to wait. You can sign. But what you do need to do is think about everything. Think about what you need to be thinking about. It's really hard for me to think that I would ever, knowing everything that I do, doing nothing but oil and gas all the time, I have a really difficult time thinking that I would enter into a 10-year oil and gas lease for 12.5% royalty. I just have a very difficult time imagining myself doing that, but that's just me. Everybody's in a different circumstance. Real quick, before I get to the break, I want to say, think about this. If you have 100 acres, what happens is a company may offer you $1,000, $1,200 an acre, maybe $1,500 if you're lucky. Well, think about if you're getting $1,000 an acre, that's $100,000. Entering into an agreement and getting that money in the short term may change your life, may be something that you just simply can't pass up on. And that is no problem. You have to do what's right for you. But in order to make that decision, you need to be thinking about the biggest possible picture and considering everything. And what I mean by that is you need to be thinking, well, if they're offering me $1,000 today and 12.5% royalty for a 10-year lease, if I wait 2 or 3 or 4 years, well, maybe that number goes down. We know 12.5% royalty cannot possibly go down, but maybe in 3 or 4 years when these budgets come back and the price comes back, if it does, which I believe it will, but again, we'll see. But if it does, maybe instead of $1,000 an acre, maybe now it does go to $1,500 an acre. Instead of 12.5%, maybe it goes to 15. Maybe it goes to $2,000 an acre. So if you had 100 acres and you signed today and you were signing at $1,000 an acre, well, you just made $100,000, but you're locked in at 12.5% royalty. Sitting there, I don't know if this will happen, but you need to consider, well, maybe in 2, 3, 4 years, instead of it being 1,015 or 12.5%, maybe it goes up to $1,500 and 15%. Well, now, instead of getting $100,000 today, by waiting 2, 3, 4 years, you might get $150,000. And if the price goes up more, goes up to $2,000 an acre, you might have just doubled your money. Now, of course, by waiting, you run into the uncertainty of not knowing what's going to happen, but you have to consider all of these points. And that's where like a review and consultation is so helpful to really get into the details and decide what's right for you and your circumstance. And remember, too, in my example, if the prices go up and there are better deals in the future, instead of 12.5% with full deductions, you might find 15% and no deductions in the future, or something higher. And with 100 acres in a productive area, that can be, over the life of the lease, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, not specific advice for anyone, but you need to be thinking about this if you're going to enter into any new agreement at this time. And I'm sorry, I don't mean this to be commercial, and I know you may get tired of hearing that, but really, that's the type of stuff that we talk about in these reviews and consultations. First things first, are you thinking about everything? What are you thinking about? Is this right for you in your circumstance? You got to do what's right for you, not your neighbor or anyone else. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark. Remember, I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., and I'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark, the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m., and if you miss any of today's show, go back, check out pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. We will have today's show up, available tomorrow, and also we index every show so you can go back and listen to hours and hours and hours of shows at your convenience. So, okay, I want to jump back into this. And again, please bear with me. I do want to always caution everybody. The show is to get you information, to get you thinking. What should you be thinking about? What should you be considering? It is not specific advice for any landowner out there, but it is advice to say, hey, am I thinking about the right things? Is there something I'm missing? What am I doing here? Is there anything that I should be thinking about that I'm somehow missing? For example, the price of gas is being used by company landmen as a tool. I say this often. These guys are smart. The companies are smart. It's not their first rodeo. They've been doing this a long time. Low gas prices are bad for the company, but at the same time, they want to use these low prices as an opportunity to secure company-friendly agreements. Now, if the price of the gas is really high, the company will say, hey, we're going to give you this deal and you're going to become such a millionaire. You're going to make so much money because here's what the gas prices are here. Look at these royalty calculators. Wow, everything is great. We're all going to be rich. But when gas prices are low, the landman says, well, it's such hard times. The company doesn't have any money. The fact that we're even able to do this is amazingly remarkable. Well, think about, why are you signing a 10-year deal when the company is not currently drilling, when they've slashed their budgets, less money to go around, less money to buy leases with? Why today? Why is this the time for you? The answer may be, I'm 70 years old. I have 100 acres. This $100,000, say I'm going to get $1,000 an acre. If I get $100,000, I can quit my job. I can retire. I can be comfortable. That $100,000 is going to change my life. Whatever happens in the future, well, hey, that'll be a benefit or not a benefit, whatever occurs. But if I can lock in $100,000 today, that's going to change my life. Maybe your children are about to go to college. Whatever the reason is, maybe it makes sense for you to take what you can get today and realize that you may suffer later. You may make hundreds of thousands of dollars less later, but at least you've secured this payment, which has a tremendous current impact on your life. And that makes sense. But you got to be thinking about all of these different things. You have to understand that anytime you sign an agreement, it comes with some sort of price, meaning that you're giving the company authority to do certain things. And if you sign today and you have 100 acres and they're offering you $1,000 or $1,200 an acre, you're going to get your money, your $100,000, your $120,000, you're going to pay your taxes, and now, and this is okay, but you have to be thinking, is this where you want to be? The company may sit on your property for 10 years or maybe even longer before you ever see drilling activity or any type of royalties. On top of that, when you do receive royalties, you may have just agreed to the lowest possible royalty percentage in Pennsylvania, 12.5%. You may have authorized full deductions from your royalties, meaning that the company can charge you all post-production cost expenses, which they deduct from your share of the royalties, which can be unbelievably substantial. Unbelievably substantial. Literally thousands of dollars in a month, and even I've seen tens of thousands. I saw one case, it was, and I shouldn't even get to there because it's so rare, but I did see a case where there was deductions at $100,000 plus in a given month. Very large property owner. But the point is, you got to be thinking with the carrot or the benefit of this front end money, there's this back end part of it. Now, hey, let's take it on a good argument of why you want to do it also. Well, maybe you sign today and then later on it's determined there is no natural gas there and then there's no more leasing. Well, if you didn't sign, you didn't get the money. That's a true fact. Also, maybe we develop some sort of alternative energy and natural gas goes away, and if you didn't sign today, you lost that opportunity. You got to weigh these things. You have to weigh them all. But on the flip side, maybe we know that there are wells that are producing already that have already been drilled in your area, in your township, in your county. We can look at and say, wow, it's pretty darn safe to say you're in a very productive area that has a lot of potential. And you may be willing to say, all right, I'm going to wait a little bit because I'm informed. I know companies have drastically slashed their budgets to acquire leases, to extend leases, to modify leases, to secure pipeline agreements. I know that. I know companies aren't drilling. So I know if I don't sign today, it's not like they're going to drill right beside me and I'm going to be left out and never see anything again because they're not drilling. So what we need to do is look at your situation, consider all of these factors, and make the best decision for your particular circumstance. We got to look at everything. And the problem is people aren't looking at everything. And if you look at everything and you decide to sign, well, first, you may be able to negotiate and get a better deal, which is often the case. If not money, with better terms and language that can be very important for you. Or you decide, hey, this isn't the time for me. I'm going to hold off. You understand the risks, the pros, the benefits of holding off, or potential benefits. You understand the negatives, the cons. What are the negative aspects, or what are the potential negative consequences of holding off? So you get all the information and you make the right decision. Once again, these are things that I talk about with my landowner clients all the time. If you are anywhere in the state, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You can call 570-307-0702. You send up whatever your offer is. We set up a call anywhere in the state, no matter where you are. You can always come to the office, but I do these by calls all the time. We can conference in family members, hunting clubs, whatever the case may be, and have an honest assessment of the offer. And I provide to you any and all information that I possibly can to help to aid you to make your decision. And sometimes we go through all this and the landowner says, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. And we say, okay, well, here's where I think we might be able to make this agreement better. Are you interested in exploring that further? And it's entirely up to you as the landowner how you want to proceed. But you understand, that you're looking at everything. Then if whatever decision that I make, whether I hold off, whether I move forward, whether I decide to just sign what they presented, which I don't like, or whether I negotiate to make this a little bit better or a lot better, depending upon the circumstance, you've made the right decision. You made an informed, intelligent, and right decision, and you didn't rely on a gas company landman who works for the gas company, not you, the landowner. And you may be thinking, there's that dead horse, but I'm telling you, there's still a lot of life left in that horse, and I'm going to keep beating it. I'm going to keep beating it, that landowners cannot rely on the individual, the landman who works for the company, their job. Secure the best agreement for the company. I don't care what they tell you about being landowner friendly or whatever they want to say. Their job is to secure the best agreement for the company. And I'll tell you what, if they're not doing their job, what does that say about them? What are their ethical standards that they're going to, when an employer pays them and they have allegiance to this employer, that they're somehow going to abandon that allegiance and represent you, the landowner, which, again, that's a bad person there too. His or her job is to work for the company. That's what they should do. We can respect that. We just need to acknowledge and understand it and do the best we can for ourselves, for the landowner. Who in the world relies on the opposition to educate, inform, and essentially negotiate for them? Who does that? Nobody. No one who's making good decisions does that. You need to, whether it's me or somebody else, you need to get good information to educate and inform yourself so you know what to do. You want to learn more, you can contact us. 570-307-0702. Like I say, I do these reviews and consults. They're so valuable. Such success. And I do them for landowners all across. I just did one recently with a gentleman in California, all across the country. So don't be afraid of distance. You can give us a call, 570-307-0702. Learn more. Check out pagasleaseattorney.com. Check out pipelineattorney.com. Okay, we're up against it here. I want to remind everyone, I'll be back. I'm here every week from 8 to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning. Make sure you check us out next week. Remember, if you miss any of today's show, go back, check out pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. A lot of great information there. And we will have today's show up and available tomorrow. Many hours of shows there. Have a great week, everyone.